Hello, and welcome to our first lesson, Intro to Map Analysis. So with this one, we're going to be looking at what maps are and what they're useful for, with the objective of trying to understand different types of maps and their purposes. I'm going to start with this. In your notebook, create a mental map of your activity space. So you don't have to tear out a piece of paper, but you want to do this in a physical way, I think. And sketch out a map of your activity space using only your brain. So, what this means, you might want to write this down. The local areas within which people move or travel within the course of their daily activities. So, as you go about your day, where do you actually go? How do you get there? Can you draw a map of those spaces? Adding as much detail as you can, filling in your map with as much as you can. So, as you're driving along, between your home and where you normally go on any given day, can you recall what do the billboards say, what other buildings are there, what trees, what roads? See how much you can get done in just 5 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes of drawing. In fact, I think I'll join you on this. Okay. Got a piece of paper here. All right, I'm going to start with my home. Make that a box. I put it in the wrong spot. Okay, so there's my home, and I'm in kind of a row of houses here on a sort of cul-de-sac. I think I've got the wrong scale. I'm going to start over. Smaller. There we go. That's my house. It's a little square now. Row of houses. Cul-de-sac. There's a row of houses there. There's a row of houses there. Okay. And there's a mailbox out on the end. You don't have to listen to me talk. You can just mute if you need to. Unmute when the timer goes off. And there's a sort of street out there. Lamppost. Street down that direction. Okay. So, like, that's my neighborhood right there. It's a kind of tree stand. And there's a house there with a cool Chinese lantern on the window, and these houses on the hill. Okay, so that's where I'm starting. That's my neighborhood. And then I'm going to draw like a larger scale map. Actually, a smaller scale map. Smaller scale map showing more detail. Here's my cul-de-sac, my house. And if you came out that direction, there's a stoplight. They're building in a new neighborhood here. There's some fence work over on that side. There's a street. Across that street. Okay. This is going to reveal where my house is, so I'm not going to show you this map. Okay, and then even larger scale, or smaller scale, even smaller scale. I always get that confused. Even smaller scale, if that's my house and that's where I do my second job, then you come all the way past the interstate, up this hill, to my third job. I got 2 minutes. I can add more detail here. Okay. Yeah, what mine ended up looking like is kind of a set of comic panels. I've got like my neighborhood in the bottom right, and then I've got where I do my second job on the left, and where I do my third job on the top right. I have 3 jobs. That's where I'm at right now in my life. So my activity space takes me from my house to the mailbox, where I do my virtual academy work, and then from my house to my second job, and then from my house to my third job, which is at BYC. I'm actually running the skateboarding class right now, which is kind of bizarre. Now, what's on the way to Nicollet Middle School? There's like there's a gas station here, there's a speedway, there's a big hill. I don't know how to show that on my map. A few different stop signs, some neighborhoods. I've got the interstate on here. I'm not exactly sure what else I can add. That's the thing. Oh, there's a gas station over here. That's the thing about an activity space, though, is that you realize kind of the limits of what you actually take in terms of information on any given day. I find that kind of interesting. Um, how little information it takes for us to do our daily activities. Of course, I know where the gas stations are because I have to go to the gas station when I'm out driving around. Um, I suppose I could put the Costco on there. I'm over at the Costco every now and again. Post office is on the way there. Let's see. Nicollet Avenue kind of runs diagonal like that. All right, 20 more seconds. See if you can fill in any more detail. My map's about done here. So I ended up drawing 3 different maps. I've got like my largest scale map, which is my neighborhood, my medium scale map, which would get me from home to the grocery store, and then my smallest scale map, which would get me from my house to Nicollet Middle School. Okay, what do maps end up telling us? We're not actually going to do this because we're asynchronous. I'm pulling this from another class here. What parts end up with the most detail is kind of the question you should ask yourself. And then where do you lack detail? Does your map have paths, landmarks? Does it include many different places? And then what can you conclude after looking at your map? What do you think about the spaces in which you navigate on your daily basis? Do they lack detail, or are there parts that are more important to you than other places? This will sort of reveal to you where your priorities are actually out in the world. So maps can show us where things are. We can use them for navigation. We can use them for identification, but they can also tell us a story. So what we're going to do today is get the difference between a reference map and a thematic map. Reference maps, we'll get the definition for thematic maps, and then we're going to learn 3 different types of thematic maps as well. So with note taking, we're going to have things you should write down are going to be highlighted. That is the assignment for this Pear Deck or video or slides. We'll include highlighting. You want to put the unit title big on a fresh page, and then you're going to take a picture of your notes either with your webcam or your phone, or maybe it's going to be digital. You're going to share a screenshot or a link. Okay. So Unit 1, write this down: intro, population, and migration. So we're going to write down 2 different types of maps. You're going to have the reference maps, show locations and places of geographic features. That's going to show mountains, roads, rivers, buildings. It's how you get to the post office. It's what's on your phone, your Google map, your Apple map is going to use that. Maybe use Waze, I don't know. Whereas thematic maps tell stories, they show movement, or they show how something's distributed across space. So they're used for studying geographic phenomena. Okay, so write down what's highlighted in yellow there. You've got a title, you've got these 2 things written down. You can pause at any time. Is this a reference map or a thematic map? Is this showing you where things are, or is it telling a story primarily? If you wanted to argue it, you could argue it. This is a reference map showing U.S. highways. That's all the major highways and then all the major state highways as well. This also, in theory, could tell a story, but mostly it's being used as reference. This is how you would navigate the U.S. highway system. Is this a reference map or a thematic map? Okay, the title of the map: largest racial, ethnic group, and religious group by county. And then a key here on the bottom left-hand side showing you the largest group, ethnic and religious. It's a thematic map. It is telling you a story about religion, race, and ethnicity in America. It's an interesting map, too. A lot of things you could look at there. Is this a reference map or a thematic map? Okay, we're looking at a global scale here, very small scale map. And it's actually not to scale. they're being stipulating there. And it's got several different things labeled: Rocky Mountains, Appalachian Mountains, Laurentine Plateau. This is a reference map. It's showing you elevation, and it's labeling the major peaks and valleys on the Earth's surface and below it, actually, because it's including several different underneath, submarine valleys like the Sargasso Sea, etc. Is this a reference map or a thematic map? The title says some of the world's many migration routes, and it's showing lines indicating sources of migration and destinations of migration. It's a thematic map. This is a map telling the story of global migration in 2015. That's what that says. Is this a reference map or a thematic map? Now, it's got colors like that map of racial ethnic groups. It's global in scale. This is a thematic map. It's labeling only the countries of the world so that you would know where they are. Is it up to date? Yes, it has Eswatini there at the bottom. That is the most recent big map change here. So that is an up-to-date global map. There are lots of different types of reference and thematic maps. Let's look at some different types of thematic maps. If you wanted to pause here and go take the quiz, you are now fully qualified to determine the difference between a reference map and a thematic map. But you can pause here. I'm going to go on and talk now about different types of thematic maps. First off, a dot map is a map where a single dot represents something. Usually dot maps are used for population or they are used for agriculture. Those are the two main things you're going to see dot maps for. So this is a population map showing you where people live. And what's interesting about this map is you know that India is the most populous country on Earth. It's also got an extremely high population density, but there are parts of India where no one lives at all, like the border between India and Pakistan that was devastated by genocide, actually, at the middle of the 20th century, and has a high elevation. People don't tend to live there or along the Everest, what are those mountains called? The Everest mountain chain is the Himalayas. Yeah, people don't tend to live along the Himalayas, and so there's a part of India where there aren't a lot of people. China, second most populous country on Earth. Vast amounts of China have no one living in them. Most people who live in China live on the east coast there. So that's kind of an interesting thing that a dot map will show you, is where phenomena are actually taking place. Generally, you're going to have the dots representing, like I said, either people or agricultural phenomenon, like locations of cows or farms that grow corn. They're just often used for that. When you're looking at a dot map, you need to ask yourself, what's the map about? That's going to be the title, World Population Distribution. What does each dot mean? That's going to be in the key. One dot represents 100,000 people. And what patterns do you see? So I was starting to analyze the patterns already, looking at places like Brazil, where most people live around the coast and don't live in the interior, or Canada, where very few people live at all, except south of, what is that, the 49th parallel. Second type of map is an isoline map. Iso means same, line means line. A line will then be drawn to show you where phenomena are the same. So oftentimes these are going to be used for climate or soil or here average temperature. So you can draw a line all the way across the United States showing places where the average temperature between January and December in the year 2020 was around 50 to 60 degrees. So that is what the line is connecting points of the same value. And then usually they'll shade in a color to indicate, the major area under study. Now, again, what's this map about? Look at the title. Average temperature in degrees between January and December. What do the colors mean? They mean the average temperature. Now, it's really important to then think the next thought. Average temperature, does that mean that it never goes above 60 in Kentucky? Of course it goes above 60 in Kentucky. According to this map, you would look at this and say, oh, okay, well, then it's an average of 40 to 50 degrees in Minnesota. Well, as we well know, it can get below 20 and it can get above 100 in Minnesota. And then you take the average and you're going to have that nice green color there. What happens when you cross over the line? So if you get out of southern Arkansas into northern Arkansas, what has changed for you as you have headed north? As you get up out of the flats of Wyoming into the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, what are you going to be experiencing on average? How are places similar? What patterns do you see? Are there places in Alaska that behave like places in northern Minnesota? Are there places in New Jersey that behave like places in California? This is how you can start to analyze this and think about the ways in which different places are similar. Um, but then you would need to start questioning, okay, well, I know that the deserts of Nevada are not very similar to the Appalachian Mountains, right? I don't know. In what ways, right? In what ways does this map oversimplify? Would be kind of an interesting question to ask. Lastly, and probably most commonly, we're going to be seeing choropleth maps. Choropleth maps shade or color to represent a particular feature. They will usually use existing boundaries. That's not always the case. Sometimes they'll make their own language maps. But it's going to be a lot easier to find data for existing political categories. Like data for Hennepin County is going to be more accessible than data for, say, the Minneapolis metro area, which, could include Robbinsdale or Blaine, but probably doesn't include St. Cloud, if that makes any sense. I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. What is the map about? Check the title, Median Income in 2015 Inflation Adjusted Dollars. So this is a map about money. And it's a map about the relative wealth of different parts of the country. So on average, a person in Alabama is poorer than a person in Minnesota on average. What patterns do you see? I'm already starting to do that. You can see that there's a cluster of wealthy Western states, a cluster of wealthy New England states, and then a cluster of poorer Southern states, West Virginia, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. This also includes the territory of Puerto Rico. The thing that you need to know about choropleth maps, you need to think about this. Are there parts of Minnesota with income less than 60,000 per capita, inflation adjusted dollars? Are there places of Wisconsin that are richer than 50,000 a year? See, when you're looking at a choropleth map, you're only looking at the greatest degree of detail shown, and oftentimes this can hide diversity within a state. So I would wager that most wealthy Minnesotans live around the Twin Cities metro, and that there are poor Minnesotans in northwestern Minnesota who are not being shown on this map. I would wager that there are wealthy people in Arkansas living around Little Rock. The Walton family live around urban Arkansas. If I could remember the name of the town, Bentonville. The Walton family live in Bentonville. And I would bet that if you looked at a town-by-town map instead of a state-by-state map, you would see diversity within these states. Is that making sense? Choropleth maps can sometimes hide diversity within areas because they're going to shade Minnesota all one color. This is going to make you feel left out of that data set. Okay, that concludes the lesson. Make sure you take the quiz, turn in your notes, and that is the day.